Hi everyone, this is the Recreate podcast with Michael and Teresa where we talk about our favorite TV shows. Today, we're going to discuss Hunted Season 3, Episode 7. For anyone who hasn't watched the show, there are spoilers ahead. Today, we're going to discuss how Ondeanne and Shelli get captured, Romanee and Chelsea, don't forget the cannoli, and Ben and Luke. Pink shorts versus dogs and drones, who comes up on top? If you've missed the episode, you can catch all the action on Template. Hunted AU, Season 3, Episode 7, the breakdown is coming up.
So, Hunted Australia, Season 3, Episode 7, the breakdown, Ondeanne and Shelli. That's where we dropped off last time, that's where we pick up today. Wow, they're on the bus, and we can see everything closing in on around them. They are faced with a dilemma to stay or to go, to get off or get on. Ugh.
Well, it's a tough choice, and from behind we can actually see that the hunters are just the hunters are just one car behind them. They've
Yeah.
literally pulled up behind the bus. They can see the bus driver getting off,
Yeah.
unloading some luggage, and we see what looks like some people getting off the bus.
It looks at this point like they are damned if they do or damned if they don't. There's little they can do, it seems, to escape their fate. They are cornered, they're stuck, and it's just a matter of time, really. And so
Yeah.
then a chase across the street, in the
Yes.
middle of the street. This is nuts.
So the hunters get out of the car as soon as they see Ondeanne and Shelli depart the bus.
Yeah.
And one of them goes after Ondeanne and he catches her pretty much straight away. But Shelli runs across the road. And for that, I was really terrified for her because what if she gets hit by an oncoming car?
This looks really terrifyingly dangerous. It's exciting, it's thrilling, but to be chasing two middle-aged women across the street with cars or highway traffic,
Yeah.
I hope they secure the streets before they do this. This seems highly dangerous, and it would have been amazing if Aketch and Joe, were a part of this too, because it just seemed like a lot of dangerous things coinciding at once. I felt a bit uneasy with this, the whole situation, that it was potentially dangerous. That was my only concern about that. But it was an amazing scene. It was really cool to see Aketch and Joe arrive at the same point in the same time.
Yeah, I mean, what are the odds? It's such
What
a
are the
small
odds?
world.
But sadly, it brings to an end the adventures of our own Thelma and Louise, Ondeanne and Shelli.
Yeah, I really like their gameplay, I have to say. I feel like, well, these are two middle-aged moms. They're wanting to prove themselves. And this is like their one last hurrah.
Yeah, like
Uh,
Thelma and Louise. It's a really
yeah.
exciting adventure. These two best friends, lifelong best friends. They're
Mm.
doing everything they wanted to do. And, let's talk about their gameplay for a little bit. How do you think they played overall?
I think they played really well. To be honest, I think they are very smart.
Yeah.
They've stuck to a lot of strangers getting help from them rather
Yeah.
than use too many close contacts, which is something that we've seen other fugitives do,
Yeah.
and it kind of like leads them to getting caught. But Ondeanne and Shelli, they've played a really good game.
They played very tight, very disciplined. They
Yeah.
relied on their strangers, their contacts to a limited degree. They avoided technology. There wasn't a lot that they did wrong. They did a
Yes.
lot of diversions and distractions, but it only takes one mistake. As I've said before, and this is a cliche I'll probably go to a lot of times, the hunted only need to be right once, the fugitives need to be perfect every day. And that one mistake they made was hanging around Apollo Bay a little too long, allowing the hunters to trace their contact through Kim, and then staying there, and then using that contact to then lead on to the CCTV at the bus station at Ballarat.
Yes. So I think going to a big Ballarat seems like a very big bus depot as well.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be lots of cameras, lots of thoroughfare. The fact that the hunters have put out a social media, like search for them, put out posters.
Yeah.
It was just a matter of time before they were going to get spotted by a member of the public.
Yeah. It really led to a sort of a dead end, a bottleneck to their journey. There was few places they could go from that point. The only way out I can think of is if they maybe asked for a stranger to give them a lift out of that space. But once you're trapped and the hunters know where you are, to then use public transport or CCTV or to use, you know, mainstream means of communication or travel, it's going to jam you up. And they
Mm.
really led themselves down that dead end.
I have to say though, the one thing I really like about them is the fact that everywhere they go, they are in disguise. Like
Yeah.
I think we've hardly ever seen them like just in their natural selves, like with their natural
Mm,
hair. They've always had on a wig. You know, they've always tried really hard to try and throw people off
yeah.
to not get recognized. And I think that's a really great part of their game.
Yeah. So Ondeanne and Shelli, we really like their gameplay, really good teammates, good empathy between them. Speaking of empathy, they get captured and they get a little bit of trash talk from old Reese. Now, Reese is a hard-edged chief. He plays the role to perfection, but he is a bit of a hard ass. We've seen him just talk a lot of shit towards the captured fugitives. There isn't that the old chief for seasons 1 and 2 was David Craig? Craig David?
Craig David,
Yeah, David Craig.
Monday, getting caught on Tuesday.
Hunted on Wednesday. Yeah, David Craig was the old chief, and every time they were captured in the past, there was a little bit of good sportsmanship, a handshake, so to speak. Well done, you did this well, you messed up here. Now, whenever the hunted get caught, Reese tends to just talk shit about them, and he does the same with Ondeanne and Shelli, putting down the Navy, saying, you know, the Army is never going to lose to the Navy. We're just better than you. This is what we do.
Well, he's got a little bit of an ego there. I think I don't really
Yeah.
think it's about the army versus navy. Maybe just a bit of a personal ego.
He's got a lot of hard edges, not a lot of soft sides to the old fella. But Ondeanne seems to take offense to it and says, you know, that we're already devastated. We've been beaten. Show a little bit of empathy, guys. You don't have to clap in our faces.
Yeah.
And what do you think about that? Is the show this season setting up a little bit of a different dynamic where, I mean, by all means, the hunted are the villains and the hunters should be the good guys. But this season, it seems to be flipping that narrative where the hunters are coming off a little bit like Goliath and the fugitives are David. And we're seeing the hunters being a little bit like
Blase,
big
maybe?
brother
Yeah.
bad guys. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
I think so. I feel like in this case, it does seem like the hunters at HQ, maybe just Reese, to be honest. Everyone else seems okay. I like Ben
Yeah.
Owens. Maybe just Reese, he just seems a little bit more of like a
It's setting a
tyrannous
tone.
villain. Like Mr. Goliath, I guess.
It's setting a tone, isn't it? That these guys have all the power, have all the might. The fugitives have, you know, nothing at their disposal.
Yeah.
And you guys are ants to be crushed. It's interesting, this narrative this year.
Yeah, I think it's a good storyline.
It's a good storyline.
Yeah,
It plays into it.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think Reese does a really good job of.
And
like,
then we
you know,
go
leading the
on
team.
briefly onto
So we'll see
Andy
how
and-
that
and Deb
continues.
Dunt.
So a little bit of background information. Andy Dunn, he is a firefighter, and he has been using not say close context, but he's actually been going into
The
fire
network.
stations, his network, and getting a lift from them to go about on their journey. And I think that is a really great thing to do because, as you say, like, you know, firefighters, they always help each other out. It's just part of their community motto. And I think it's a really great play here. What do you think?
Yeah, it's something, but unfortunately, the hunters are onto it. They are aware that he's a firefighter and that he likely will use this network. So whether this leads to their downfall, we'll see. But nevertheless, there is definitely a community, a code. They're going to stick up for each other. They're not going to betray him. This is the advantage of using a community over strangers.
Yeah.
We haven't seen much of Andy and Deb. I'm looking forward to seeing more of them. I feel like the edit is shaping up to give us a lot of them at the end to build up to a crescendo of Deb narrative, especially given that her father was a convict.
Yes.
And there's a storyline there at play that I feel is really building up to give us, a really big finale with those two, I think.
Yes, I mean, she has said in, I think, episode 1 that doing this season, it gives her an insight into what her father's life might have been like. So I think there's something, probably an emotional, episode probably coming up.
Yeah, there's a real big
And
opportunity
yeah, I
for a
think
massive
so.
storyline there. I don't know
Which-
whether her father is still around. It seems like he is not, judging by the way she speaks of him in the past tense. But nevertheless, massive storyline coming up. I feel like they're getting, I don't want to speculate too much, but the show is sort of giving them a winner's edit in not giving us much on them to go
No,
from so
I mean,
far.
so far we haven't actually seen them make any mistakes at all.
We haven't seen them do anything.
Yeah,
really,
we haven't really
other
seen them
than
do.
cut
Yes.
their hair. What have they
Yes.
done for the show? On the show, they've been very, scarcely portrayed.
And also, just a little bit more background information on Andy. I think he's actually competed in multiple reality shows. So he was actually on Australian Ninja Warriors,
Ooh,
just a couple of seasons back. And
that's
so
handy.
he is very, very fit,
Very handy.
very handy.
Handy Andy.
Yeah, handy Andy. They seem very good at camping. They've got all the right equipment. They seem to be doing nothing wrong at the moment, which is great.
Staying off grid, staying low. We'll see if this firefighter contact is their downfall.
And now we move on to Romanee and Chelsea. We see that they've actually been doing some odd jobs to pay for their accommodation and
This is very good. This shows how resourceful, how hardworking and resilient they are. These are two farmer girls who aren't afraid to work hard for their bed and breakfast.
I really like them. And we see them show up at her Aunt Rosa's house. And wow, amazingly, Aunt Rosa is making cannolis from scratch. I am so impressed.
Yeah, this looks really nice. Very delicious cannolis. As she says, you need these if you want a husband. Wow.
The Italian code.
Yeah, speaking of Italian code, she talks about omerta, the code of silence between Italians. Now, this is an unspoken code where, you don't say anything to the authorities, you don't snitch, you don't say anything to the police. It's a code that Southern Italians have abided by for many centuries and that the Sicilian mafia has used to, extend their power and influence over people to just...
Romanee and Chelsea are enlisting the help of Aunt Rosa's daughter, so their cousin, Claudia. They would like her to be a decoy to use their bank card at an ATM where she'll likely get tracked by the hunters. And hopefully that diverts them some of their resources into following Claudia rather than chasing Romanee and Chelsea.
While they go north with Rosa and her husband and drive 2 hours away. This is a kind of a clever diversion, except they make a few mistakes here because they aren't aware of the sophistication of the hunters' technology, and the hunters are able to use facial recog on the ATM pretty much straight away, and then use that to find out what phones Claudia is using, her contacts, her mother, the cars they're using. And so even though they go camping up north 2 hours away, the hunters are then pretty much on their trail, it seems.
Yeah, and I think the big thing that surprised me was that Romney was actually using Aunt Rosa's phone to call Claudia at their actual campsite.
I know.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, that is a huge mistake because I don't think she knows that the phone can be pinged, like, the data dump. They can track that and realize, hey, they're actually in a catcher?
A catcher, I think it is, yeah. Big
Yes.
mistake there. It's quite unfortunate because she was being so sweet and
Yeah.
so polite, just calling to say thank you, appreciate everything you've done, but unfortunately it's going to lead to their downfall, perhaps. Now, this camp looks dry as a bone. This is the worst. Like, comparing that to Luke and Ben's glamping, this looks like the most barren camp you could stay at. Very miserable.
The ground is very hard and
this is
dry. There's like no grass. It's all bushland.
It's going to be a tough couple of nights for the ladies, but I think they're tough enough for it.
Yeah, and I think this maybe, we've talked about Romanee and Chelsea, like that maybe they're not that aware of how urban surveillance looks because their background is from the farm. And I feel like this could be one of the factors that really trips them into getting caught early. I hope
Yeah.
not, but
Yeah, and it's pretty funny to see them using this facial recog software and then just going to a freeware website which has literally pricing
plans.
and shit like that and opt-outs instead of an actual government software or police software that they would actually have on hand. They're using freeware online, facial recog. Yeah, and now we get to the main thrust of the episode, the main drama that we've been waiting for, Ben and Luke.
Oh, I love them. I love them. I love them.
Yeah, this is going to be one of the most exciting episodes we've seen. And wow, so much happens, so much to break down. So.
Yeah, so much to break down. Yes, I know. Okay, I can't wait to get into this.
So we start in on them in Hillsville, and it seems like those pink shorts have messed them up. A caller calls in to the hotline. We get some funny calls into Ben Owen. He seems to be a really popular hotline number now that everyone has his mobile.
Yeah, yeah,
He's going to get a
yeah.
lot of admirers.
Yes.
But a caller does them in and says, I've seen two guys walking down the street, one of them with long blonde hair, tattoos, and what do you know, pink shorts.
And we have to understand, like, Luke, he's actually very, very distinct looking.
He is.
And, like, if you were in Melbourne, like the city central, I think, you probably
You're
wouldn't.
fine.
Yeah, you'll be fine. But in, like, an out of town, where, he's going to, like, really stand out.
Oh, yeah. Is it vanity that finally does in Luke? Wow. And so they go for a walk out of town, slightly out of town, and finally end up at the Big Four caravan park.
And this is a really big park, so it's got 70 acres, so it's very easy for them to get lost. And as you remembered from like a previous episode, they were on one of their friends' property. It's a farm as well, and there's a
That was
lot.
7 acres. So this is 10
Yeah,
times the
10
size. This is
times.
large.
Yes.
Okay. A lot of people living and camping on this site. This is a
Mm.
massive territory.
And when they went to the office, they got caught on CCTV footage when they went to check in, and this was relayed to Hunter's HQ. So now they were able to pinpoint exactly which of the campsites
They were
that
staying at.
yeah they were
Yeah.
staying at.
So yeah, this is looking like a few mistakes in a row, a few unfortunate events in a row.
Yeah.
Firstly, they get a witness, a member of the public, identifying them and calling the hotline. Secondly, they go to the CCTV of a campsite instead of getting maybe a stranger to go in and check in on their behalf.
Yeah.
So maybe fatigue, complacency, a little bit of weariness starting to show on our
Yeah.
boys.
Well, to their credit, they said that because they had to escape so quickly from the last place, they literally only had like a few cans of food. They have no change of clothes. So Luke has been wearing those pink shorts for the
Those-
entire period of time, and
Those
yeah.
pink shirts are so dirty. I'm sick of looking at them, but they must be so dirty by now.
I feel
That's
like
a dirty pink.
I feel like this summer everyone's going to be wearing pink shorts.
I hope not.
They check into cabin 234, and boy is Luke excited and happiest about the full-length mirror he's discovered in the room.
Yeah, talk about creature comforts and missing the finer things in life. He doesn't miss the hot water, the bed, the food. He misses the full length mirror.
Well, this is his style of camping, as they say.
Yeah, the things you have to do to look good. And the pink shorts we see finally get a clean, thank God.
Yeah, there's like chewing gum on the back, and it turns out that Ben has never done laundry before. It's all Luke's responsibility.
It's like me. It's amazing how these things happen. Like, I just open the cupboard and clothes are in there. It's fantastic magic. Flashback to the last time they were cornered and how they escaped narrowly, they split off, they reunited, and that is still playing on the minds of the hunters. It still left a bad taste in their mouth. And so, faced with a similar situation again,
They've just gone all out.
they've gone all out. They have tipped open the piggy bank, they've opened up the tip jar, they've pulled out the petty cash. The whole budget is freaking being blown
Yeah.
on the backside of this episode.
And it's a really spectacular like scene. We have a dog, so a canine scent tracking dog called Chopper. My God, he looks pretty ferocious. I mean, I would be scared if a dog like that came running up to me, and I have kept dogs, but he looks pretty scary. They've got infrared drones with thermal. They have two ground teams, Alpha and Delta, plus one drone team managing all the drones, and it's a lot of manpower being harnessed.
Plus the HQ Blackhead
Yes.
headquarters. This is full deployment.
Yeah.
So they cannot afford to get embarrassed again this time. Otherwise, wow, it's going to be egg on their face. And then we go back to Luke and Ben, who are oblivious to what is conspiring around them at this massive deployment that's happening. And they're just saying hello to their neighbors, being friendly.
And we cut to a member of the public calling HQ.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same neighbor they say hello to, but clearly their kindness and their sense of community is really hurting them this episode. And also the community campaign that the hunters have put
Yes.
on, this social network campaign, is really effective. This is really messing up the game of Luke and Ben.
Yes, there's actually a reward out for them as well. And if you are a member of the public, yeah, what's to stop you from dobbing them in?
Yeah, so being visible is really hurting them this episode. And so while a member of the public has already given them the location of the caravan park, this second member of the public gives them the actual pinpoint location
Of the
where the
cabin.
actual cabin. So this has really shut down or narrowed those 70 acres into just a few cabins.
Yes.
Incredible.
Yes, and we see the ground team deploying the drones out first.
Yeah.
Ben and Luke have heard the drone, I think, for quite some time, and they're like, "Hey, is that a drone flying overhead us?"
Oh, I think this is one of those fatal mistakes they make. They hear the drone. This was their maybe last opportunity to just get out of Dodge. To their credit, though, they do hear it and they do respond.
Yeah, but they just kind of took some time.
Yeah,
I think they were just walking around, staying under cover, under a tree.
It's not normal to hear drones around you when when you're just going for a walk at night. If you see a drone flying overhead and you're not in like a park,
Oh, it's probably the hunters.
it's probably the hunters, yeah. You gotta go. And to their credit, they pack and they go. And now it's pretty much a classic chase sequence scene at night with choppers, with a dog, hunters on the ground. This is exciting stuff.
It is. So we see Luke and Ben, they're trying to be as quiet and as stealthy as they can. But we suddenly see one of the members from Team Alpha come up behind them with a dog. And this is where it all becomes a sprint and a split up.
Yeah, I don't like this play by the hunters. I feel like he came across looking like a bad security guard at Kmart chasing a teenager. And it's exactly what they did the last time they cornered Ben and Luke. I feel like once he had eyes on them, the sophisticated, high-end, play that I really want to see from professional hunters was to maybe radio in that he had eyes on them, arrange some kind of net, a trapping. Yeah, as I said, the last time they cornered Luke and Ben, they were kind of clumsy, a little bit too forward. They just ran down the driveway, they announced themselves, they made themselves very visible and loud, and they gave Luke and Ben a chance to escape. With all this technology, all these resources, really satisfying gameplay that I would have liked to have seen would have been a little bit more subtle surveillance, strategy, and really nice entrapment in that way. If you're going to chase them into a trap. Instead, he just calls them out, as I said, like a security guard. Hey, stop there.
Yeah, and they just run off.
They just run off.
Yeah, and so you've just alerted them that, you're right behind them. Like, he could have actually just came up from behind and just tapped them. And
he had every advantage, and he just gave it up. When you announce yourself like this, you give away your advantage of surprise, right? And now it's just literally your legs versus their legs. Straight up race.
And we know that Luke is a very, very good runner.
That boy is fast.
Yes. So the hunter, rightly so, follows Ben, who probably isn't as good a runner.
Not as mobile.
Yeah, and he managed to catch him, which is very unfortunate. But we find out that Luke is still on the run, and it's very exciting.
Yeah, so Luke is split off, and he's laying doggo, as they say, laying still. He's somewhere in the trees. Ben is obviously caught, he's out of breath, but he's still calling out support, saying, go Luke, run Luke, you got this, it's on you.
He is the nicest husband.
Yeah, but Luke is obviously terrified, like a possum, he's in the bushes, he's hiding, and he's got a bunch of hunters around him.
Yeah, and this is where I feel like Team Delta, they're doing not a great job of trying to catch him because... So they're shining a torch, like, which they have to because it is very dark, but they're calling out as well. And this will alert Luke to their location. So all he has to do is just to slip very quietly around them.
It's like that game in the pool, Marco Polo. They're literally just calling out, Marco. I wouldn't be surprised if Luke just yells out, Polo, and then just sprints off. You're giving them your location. When you say, hey, Lukey, come out. He ain't going to come out. Have you been watching the show? This guy is fast. He's not a quitter. He's not going to just submit. You're going to have to chase him. You can't just convince him to come out like a child.
Yeah.
So I felt like this made the hunters look a little bit unsophisticated.
A bit clumsy. Yes.
I didn't love this gameplay. I feel like they should have stayed quiet, used the infrared, pinpointed his location, gotten one person on one side, another on the other, and closed in on him. Or at least chased him into, as I said before, a trap. Just standing there and calling out for him, like the way I call for my cat when he's coming home late for dinner, It makes you look really lame, man. I don't like this.
Yeah, I don't think this was the best move.
But
on their
hunters are
part.
all around them, just like love.
And we see that Hunter's HQ has got drone footage of Luke hiding behind one of the cabins. And this is where they kind of like corner him and he has to actually run away from them. And he is taunting them as he runs, which is he's a bit of a mischievous guy.
And he's giving them a lot of action. He's giving us a lot of entertainment, even in
Yeah.
his seemingly final moments.
It's
He's
like,
not going
catch me
down.
if you can.
Yeah, he's not going down without a fight.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Very cool. And that's why we love him.
Yeah, good on you, Luke. I hope you get away. And then we end on a cliffhanger with the hunters chasing Luke. It seems like it's just a matter of time, but you never know. If anyone can get away from these guys, it's Luke. We'll find out in the next episode, episode 8. But let's wind it back a little bit. It seems now like the end of the road for Ben, at least, half of the team. What could have Ben and Luke done differently given the circumstances?
I think probably for them, the main error was that they went to the office to book a cabin for themselves. And this is where the footage from the CCTV actually alerted the hunters to their whereabouts.
Yeah.
Perhaps if they had asked a stranger to book it for them, then the hunters would still be trying to locate their whereabouts.
Yeah, I agree. I think exposing themselves, for one, not in that sense, but also making themselves exposed in the sense of the way they looked was the other error that they made, making themselves very, especially Luke, making himself very distinct and visible, made him very vulnerable to members of the public to calling in. We're seeing a massive push and influx of callers to the HQ hotline now, of people giving the whereabouts of the fugitives. And so this is a real vulnerability in everyone's game.
Yeah, and I think this is in contrast to, say, Ondeanne and Shelli, where they haven't had as many calls because they've always been in disguise.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Luke and Ben, they are just so distinct in the way they look. It's going to be hard to pass by.
Same as Andy and Deb, Romanee and Chelsea, they've laid low. Whereas the socialite couple here, they're very friendly, very outgoing, very
Quite
gregarious.
flamboyant.
You know, they say hi to everyone. They're a lovely couple. They love to socialize. Unfortunately, that may have led to a lot of people recognizing them, identifying and pinging them, and then calling HQ. So this is one of the things about using the public. It can go to your benefit, as we've seen with Jade and Taylor, or it can backfire and lead to your downfall, like Luke and Ben. But we don't know.
Well, one question I have, did you think that the hunters had actually gone to the office to ask for their cabin number? Because that wasn't actually revealed to us in this episode.
Yeah, that seemed like the obvious play. Instead, what they did is they rolled up outside the gate of the Big Four and just deployed this massive arsenal of dogs and drones and ground deployment. They could have just knocked on the freaking door.
That just seemed like the logical thing is to go to the office. I'm sure there would still have been a receptionist there because this looks like a very big camping ground. So they would probably have staff there 24/7 and just ask for their cabin number and just, I guess, corner them there.
Yeah, they could have used a knife instead of a hammer and been a lot more surgical.
But I guess if they do that, it means we miss out on this big spectacle of a chase scene of the canine, the drones. That would have probably been a lot less spectacular of an ending there.
Yeah, as Tolkien once said, if I did that, I wouldn't have a book, to paraphrase. Yeah, and so we come to the end of the episode and we're at a bit of a cliffhanger. Luke out on the lurch, on a cliff, by himself, being chased by hunters, Ben in the bag. Who knows what's going to happen, but I think we're going to wind it up there. So
yeah, and thank you guys. We just want to thank you for listening to the show. This is the Recreate podcast by Michael and Teresa. You can find us on Recreate on TikTok and Instagram. That's WRECK.CREATE, where you can watch highlight videos of what we talked about. If you like what you hear, be sure to like and subscribe to our pod. It really helps us a big deal, and we are extremely grateful for any support. We'll be back shortly with the next episode, which I think will be very, very exciting. So stay tuned.
see you.